911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was calm, practiced, with that edge of tension that says she's heard it all and believes none of it until the screaming starts. On the other end of the line, a man was breathing too fast, like the phone was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. We set up our tent by the little creek just past the mile 13 marker on the service road, he said. There's a man walking circles around our camp. He won't answer us. He just keeps walking. Sir, I need your name and the names of everyone with you. My name is Alex. My friends Ben and Lila are here. We're in a gray Chevy with Wisconsin plates. The recording crackled. Under the static, there were other sounds. Slow footsteps on gravel, circling something soft and fragile. A tent maybe, nylon rustling. Alex, stay on the line, the dispatcher said. A ranger unit is on the way. Do not confront him. The caller's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. He knows our names. He was whispering them outside the tent. He walked around us for an hour. Now he's getting closer. I think he has a knife. Please, hurry. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, the only sound on the line was the caller's breathing and the faint Velcro sound of something dragging across fabric. Oh God, he's cutting into the tent. He's right outside. The recording exploded into harsh static and then cut off so suddenly it felt like the air in the room had been sucked away. When that call first played over a cheap camping radio, the three friends listening realized something impossible. The voice begging for help was one of their own. Welcome to Midwest Mysteries. Tonight's story is a true camping horror story from northern Wisconsin, told to us by a listener who asked that we only use his first name. Alex. In late summer of 2019, just before Labor Day weekend, Alex and two friends drove deep into a national forest, looking for the kind of silence you can only find miles from the nearest town. What they found instead was a stretch of road the locals had quietly given up on, a place the rangers had stopped patrolling at night. They were warned, very clearly. Never camp past mile marker 12. They didn't listen. This is what happened on the road to mile marker 13, in Alex's own words. I've always been the one in my friend group who pushes for the quieter option. If there's a crowded campground with picnic tables and a playground and RVs lined up like a parking lot, and then a rough dirt road disappearing into the trees, I'm choosing the dirt road every time. In late August of 2019, right before Labor Day, I convinced my best friend Ben and his girlfriend, Lila, to skip the packed campgrounds and try dispersed camping in the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest in northern Wisconsin. No neighbors, no kids screaming at 2 a.m, no generators humming, just us, a tent, and the sound of the woods. Lila was nervous from the start. I don't like the idea of no one else around if something goes wrong, she said in the passenger seat, arms folded so tight across her chest it looked like she was holding herself in place. Ben laughed and smacked the steering wheel with his palm. We're not helpless, Lila. We've got a truck, food, water. Worst case, we just drive back to the highway. Right, Alex? I was in the backseat with my backpack between my knees. I nodded. Yeah, there's a whole network of Forest Service roads out here. People camp off them all the time. We'll be fine. I believed that when I said it. I really did. We stopped at a small ranger station to get a free fire permit. The building looked like it hadn't seen fresh paint since the 80s. Faded green siding, a tired American flag out front, and one white Forest Service pickup in the parking lot. Inside, a huge wall map showed a spiderweb of dirt roads cutting through green. Service Road 28 branched into 241, which branched into an even smaller line marked with little hash marks and the words seasonal closure. The ranger on duty introduced himself as Holloway. Late 50s, gray mustache, skin like leather from too many summers in the sun. The kind of guy who looked like he could walk a 10-mile trail loop in his sleep. He filled out our permit, then looked up at Ben. Where are you three planning to camp? He asked. Ben glanced at me like I was the GPS. Off one of the back roads, he said. Somewhere quiet. We don't need hookups or anything. Just a flat spot. Holloway's eyes moved from Ben to Lila to me. The casual small talk feel dropped out of his voice. He was sizing us up now. You experienced with dispersed camping? He asked. I shrugged. Couple of times, mostly in Michigan. We're careful. Pack it in, pack it out. He tapped a finger on the map. Then you know the rules. You can camp off most of these roads, but listen carefully. His finger slid up along Road 241 and stopped at a tiny printed 12 on a thin line. Do not camp past mile marker 12 on Service Road 241, he said. I mean it. Lila leaned forward over the counter. Why big I mom now, she asked. Is it private land? Holloway hesitated just long enough to make my stomach tighten. Old washouts, some burned scar. We don't maintain that stretch anymore, he said. We also don't respond to calls out there at night unless it's life or death. Ben tried to joke it away. So like if we flip the truck, you'll just get us in the morning? The ranger didn't laugh. If you get stuck past 12, you might not be the only ones out there, he said. And I don't have enough Ben to go chasing idiots who ignore signs. Stay before 12 or turn around. He slid the permit across the counter. Enjoy your stay. On the way out, Lila muttered, I like how he casually dropped, you might not be the only ones out there, and just moved on. Ben rolled his eyes as we headed back to the truck. Scare tactic, he said. They say that so people don't go tearing up the roads. We'll find a spot before mile 12, okay? I wish that had been true. We turned off the pavement onto a washboarded stretch of dirt. The farther we went, the narrower the road became. Trees crowding in, branches scraping the sides of Ben's gray Chevy. Every mile or so, a white wooden post marked our progress. Mile 7, mile 8, mile 9. We passed an official campground at one point. A loop of packed sites, metal fire rings, a pit toilet, kids on bikes, a dog barking at nothing, smoke curling lazily from fire pits. Lila watched them disappear in the side mirror. We could have stayed there, she said softly. Too easy, Ben said. We're going for no neighbors, remember? We kept going. Little two tracks branched off and vanished into the underbrush. The trees thickened, darker and older. Mile 10, mile 11. A faded orange metal sign appeared on the right. Road closed ahead. No maintenance beyond mile 12. Ben slowed for it, but he didn't stop. Probably just for winter, he said. We'll stop before the closure. The mile 12 post showed up a minute later on our right, chipped and leaning. Just beyond it, a yellow metal gate stood half across the continuation of the road. The gate was chained, but the chain hung slack, leaving enough space for a truck to squeeze through if the driver was determined. Ben pulled over before the gate and killed the engine. We can camp right here, he said. Nice little shoulder, close to a creek. I can hear water. I got out. The air smelled like pine and damp dirt. Somewhere beyond the trees, I could hear the faint trickle of water. The shoulder was okay, I guess. Slanted with big rocks we'd have to move and trash, crushed beer cans, a broken lawn chair half buried in leaves. It felt used and careless in a way that didn't match the quiet around us. I walked past the open gate just to see what was beyond. The road narrowed, but the trees opened up a bit. After maybe 100 yards, a faint path veered left toward the sound of the creek. I followed it and stepped into exactly the kind of spot I pictured when I talked my friends into this trip. A flat patch of ground, a small fire ring already there, stones in a rough circle, a clear little creek just 20 feet away, running over smooth rocks. I turned back toward the way I came. The yellow gate was out of sight now. All I saw were trees. Then I noticed something half hidden in the tuff near the path. A white mile marker post lying on its side, half rotten. The number painted on it, worn and crooked, was 13. For a second, Holloway's voice slid back into my mind. Do not camp past mile marker 12. I told myself mile markers were approximate. We were only a little past the gate. Maybe that post had been moved. Maybe it had fallen and someone had tossed it aside. Alex, Lila called from the road. Where'd you go? Guys, you have to see this, I called back, forcing cheer into my voice. It's perfect. That was how we chose mile marker 13. We set up camp as the daylight drained into that long golden hour the Midwest is famous for. Ben backed the truck so its nose pointed down the road, ready to drive out fast if we needed to. Lila spread their sleeping bags in the tent. I gathered dead branches for the fire. I'd brought a small handheld radio, one of those cheap scanners where you can pick up weather updates and random local chatter. It was mostly a toy. I liked hearing ranger traffic and the occasional trucker with nothing better to do. As night settled in, I left it propped on a rock near my camp chair, volume low, scanning through static and faint voices while we roasted marshmallows. We ate, laughed, and told the usual dumb stories. The forest felt big, but not hostile, just empty in the way we'd wanted. Sometime after 11, the temperature dipped, and we huddled nearer the fire. The radio had settled on a weather channel repeating the forecast on a loop. Lila yawned. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Wake me if a bear shows up, or if you two start telling secrets without me." "There are no bears here," Ben said. "Only raccoons with attitude." She gave him a weak smile and crawled into the tent. It was just the two of us by the fire. The stars were bright enough to feel like they were leaning down between the branches. After a while, the wind shifted, and I smelled wood smoke that wasn't ours, sharper, tinged with something chemical like burnt plastic. I looked up the road. Far ahead, through the trees beyond the edge of our firelight, I saw the faintest orange glow, low to the ground, too steady and smooth to be a normal campfire, more like someone had hung a lantern behind a curtain. "Did you see that?" I asked. Ben followed at my gaze. "Other campers," he guessed. "Huh. Guess we're not alone after all." We watched for a minute. No voices, no clink of bottles, no movement, just that glow, steady as a distant streetlight. A branch cracked somewhere off to our right in the dark. We both turned toward the sound. "Deer," I said automatically. "Has to be deer." Ben shrugged and tossed another log on. "One more beer, then sleep," he said. "We got hiking tomorrow." Eventually, we doused the fire, zipped up the tent, and lay down. Lila's breathing slowed into sleep on my right. Ben was on my left, scrolling through something on his phone with the brightness way down. The forest wrapped around us, crickets, the soft rush of the creek, a faint breeze high in the pines. I drifted off. I don't know what time it was when I woke up to the sound of footsteps on gravel. Not random cracks and rustles, not an animal snuffling in the leaves. Steady, measured human steps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They came from the direction of the road, circled behind the truck, then faded slightly as they moved towards our tent, then turned away, making a wide arc just outside where the fire had been. I froze, listening. "Ben," I whispered. "You awake?" He shifted beside me. "Yeah," he breathed. "You hear that?" Lila stirred. "Is that an animal?" she whispered. The footsteps stopped, right by my head, just on the other side of the thin tent wall. Gravel ground softly under a boot, then went still. My throat went dry. "Hello," I called, trying to keep my voice steady. "You okay out there?" No answer. "Hey," Ben shouted, "we're right here. You need something?" The steps started again, still slow, still deliberate, still circling. One orbit around the tent, then another, then another. We never heard them approach through the trees. We never heard them leave the way they'd come. It was like they had simply appeared in a ring around our camp and decided to follow that invisible track. Outside, the forgotten radio picked up a faint voice under the static, just clear enough to make out a few words. "Copy that. Last call came from mile 13 again. Units are..." Then it dissolved back into noise. A chill ran down my spine. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Ben's hand found my arm in the dark and squeezed. "Shut up," he hissed. "Just listen." We lay there for what felt like an hour, listening to someone we couldn't see walk measured circles around the thin nylon that separated us from the night. Eventually, either exhaustion or some kind of mercy dragged me back under. When sunlight finally seeped through the tent, it felt like surfacing from deep water. We stepped out into a crisp, bright morning. Birds were screaming joyfully from the treetops. The creek sparkled. For a minute, it was easy to tell myself we'd overreacted. And then I looked down. Around our tent were footprints in the damp earth and scattered gravel. Some were ours, easy to recognize by tread, but others weren't. There were larger, deeper boot prints that formed a rough ring around the perimeter of our camp, always staying a few feet from the tent. Parallel to those, overlapping in weird ways, were narrower impressions that looked like bare feet. No shoe tread, just heel and toe, pressed into the soft earth. They went around and around, then trailed off toward the road and vanished where the ground became hard-packed. Lila's face went white. "Alex, those steps were right next to my head," she whispered. "Could have been a hunter," Ben said, but his voice lacked its usual swagger. "Or another camper who got turned around. Maybe they didn't want to wake us up." "Who the hell hikes out here barefoot at night?" I asked. No one answered. We made coffee without talking much. Every twig snap sounded like a gunshot. Later that morning, I suggested we walk up the road a bit, just to see if there were any other campsites nearby. Maybe we'd find fire rings or tire tracks that would explain our unwanted visitor. Ben agreed. Lila didn't want to be left alone, so she came with us. About a quarter-mile up, the trees thinned out and opened into a blackened clearing. The ground was dark and ashy in a wide oval. Charred tree trunks stood like blackened pillars. Others had fallen and lay half-buried in soot. In the middle of that scar was what remained of a campsite, a ring of rocks where a fire had clearly once raged far too hot, a melted rectangle that had probably been a cooler, the twisted metal skeleton of a folding chair, and beside it, driven into the ground at a slight angle, was a wooden cross made from two nailed-together sticks. Someone had burned a name into the cross, but the center letters had been charred too deep to read. Only the first and last looked like they might have been A and T. Beneath the name, still perfectly legible despite time and weather, was a date, 09/02/2012, 7 years almost to the day before we arrived. Lila covered her mouth with her hand. "We shouldn't be here," she said. This is where somebody died." Ben picked up a warped piece of blue plastic. "Could have been a lightning strike," he said half-heartedly. "Or a campfire that got away. Maybe the cross is just a memorial." I stared at the burnt-out fire ring and the melted cooler. "Why is the name burned out?" I asked quietly. The forest around us was silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. "Let's go back," Lila said. "I don't like this." We turned and walked back down the road, leaving the blackened campsite and its nameless cross behind us. That afternoon, we argued about leaving. "It's weird, yeah," Ben said, pacing. "But we're fine. If we try to drive out in the dark and get stuck in a washout, that's worse. We leave early, first light, okay?" Lila glared at him, but eventually nodded. "I'm sleeping in my jeans," she said. "Shoes by the door. If something happens, I'm running." We double-checked the truck, restacked our firewood, and made sure the truck was still pointed down the road. The radio sat back on its rock, scanning lazily through static and distant voices. As darkness settled in again, the forest felt different. The sky went from blue to purple to black, but the night sounds didn't really come. The crickets we'd heard the night before were fewer and patchy. The creek seemed quieter, like someone had thrown a blanket over it. We sat closer to the fire than we had the previous night, shoulders nearly touching. "We'll take shifts," I said. "One person awake at all times." Nobody argued with that. I took the first watch. Around midnight, Lila and Ben crawled into the tent while I stayed by the embers. Hood up, flashlight beside me, hatchet within reach. The radio hissed softly. Every now and then, I'd catch fragments of what sounded like ranger dispatch, too faint to make out fully. "Unit 4, copy check, on report near Old Burn." Call came from somewhere around marker 13, then static. I fiddled with the antenna, trying to clear it up, but it never stayed. Around 1:30, I heard it again. Footsteps. They started on the road and approached, crunching steadily. They circled the truck, approached the tent. This time I didn't call out right away. Some stubborn, stupid part of me wanted to see who it was, to make them solid and ordinary in the beam of my flashlight. The steps came right up to the edge of the firelight and stopped. There was a shape there, taller than me, just beyond the deepest reach of the dying embers. I couldn't see a face, just the suggestion of a figure standing very, very still. My mouth went dry. "Hey," I said. "You're on our campsite. You okay? Do you need help?" The shape didn't answer. It didn't move. For a second, the radio crackled behind me. 911, what is your emergency?" a woman's voice asked, calm and clear. The figure took one more step toward me. I thought I saw the faintest glint of eyes in the dark, bright and flat, like glass. I bolted for the tent. "Ben, Lila, wake up! He's here," I hissed, fumbling with the zipper. Outside, the footsteps retreated, circling again, a little faster now. Ben scrambled out of his sleeping bag, grabbed the hatchet, and shoved past me. Lila grabbed the flashlight with shaking hands. "Who's out there?" Ben shouted into the dark. "We're armed. We'll call the ranger." We all knew we had no signal. The footsteps stopped. The radio volume spiked on its own, as if someone had twisted the knob. 911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher repeated, now loud enough to fill the tent. There was a pause, then a male voice came through, panicked, breath hitching, but horribly familiar. We set up our tent by the little creek, just past the mile 13 marker on the service road, he said. There's a man walking circles around our camp. He won't answer us. He just keeps walking. Every word felt like a fist closing around my heart. That's this road, Ben whispered. That's literally what we did. Sir, I need your name and the names of everyone with you, the dispatcher said. Static crackled. In the background of the call, we could hear footsteps crunching gravel and the faint papery brush of nylon. My name is Alex, the caller said. My friends Ben and Lila are here. We're in a gray Chevy with Wisconsin plates. We checked in at the ranger station around 4 p.m. We passed the mile 12 marker and my own name, my friends' names, our truck, our arrival time. Lila's nails dug into my arm. That's you, she whispered. Alex, that's your voice. It was and it wasn't. It sounded a little thinner, a little more distant, but every cadence, every break was mine. He knows our names, the voice on the radio said, cracking with fear. He was whispering them outside the tent. He walked around us for an hour. Now he's getting closer. I think he has a knife. Please, hurry. Outside the tent, something began dragging slowly along the fabric from left to right, like the point of a blade tracing a circle. Alex, turn it off, Lila whispered. Please turn it off. Alex, stay on the line, the dispatcher said. A ranger unit is on the way. Do not confront him. What if he cuts into the tent? The caller, my voice pleaded. We're trapped in here. I can hear him breathing. I can smell him. He smells like smoke. As if obeying a cue, the air in the tent filled with the faint reek of old campfire smoke, sweat, and something metallic underneath. I grabbed the radio with both hands, meaning to shut it off, to fling it into the creek, anything. Before I could, my own voice came out of it one more time. Please, just tell him to leave us alone, it begged. I don't care if the truck gets stuck. I don't care if we have to walk back. Just tell him to go away. Those were the exact words I had said to Ben earlier that day when we were arguing about staying. Lila stared at me, eyes huge. You said that, she whispered. You said that exactly. He's repeating you. Outside at the front of the tent, again, the dragging sound shifted, turning into a deliberate sawing motion. The fabric bowed inward as if something sharp was pressing in from the outside. He's cutting our tent, the voice on the radio screamed. He's right outside. The side wall of the tent billowed toward us, a solid, invisible weight pushing into the nylon. Ben snapped. He lunged for the zipper and yanked it down. Ben, don't, I started. He was already through, hatchet raised, flashlight beams shooting out into the night. I scrambled after him, half stumbling onto the cold ground. We stood there, breathing hard, swinging the beam across the clearing. There was no one there. No tall, dark shape, no knife, no circling man, just our overturned camp chairs, the cold fire pit, and the truck gleaming faintly. Inside the tent, the radio shrieked with static, then cut off mid-scream. The forest was silent, but when I lowered the flashlight to the ground near my bare feet, I saw them. Fresh prints, overlapping the ones from the night before. Boot prints, bare footprints. A final, tight circle pressed into the damp soil around the tent. 10 feet away, they vanished, no sign of anyone walking away from camp. Just blank, undisturbed earth. We're leaving, Lila said. Her voice was flat, controlled, the way it gets when someone is beyond scared. Right now, I don't care if we wreck the truck. We are leaving. Ben didn't disagree this time. We tore camp down in a frenzy. We didn't roll anything up. We didn't sort gear. We ripped stakes out of the ground and threw the half-collapsed tent, sleeping bags, chairs, and cooler into the bed of the truck. Ben turned the key. The engine growled to life. As we pulled back onto the narrow road, I looked over my shoulder one last time. Our little clearing was already disappearing into the darkness. For a moment, just beyond where our camp had been, I thought I saw that same low orange glow from the first night, hovering between the trees. A mute, steady fire that somehow never went out. I turned forward and didn't look back again. The headlights ate up the rutted road as we bounced and slid our way out. Tree branches reached in like fingers. Every shadow felt too dense, too expectant. About half a mile down, something appeared in the beams ahead of us, standing still on the right side of the road. A man. He stood just off the shoulder, facing us, motionless. He wore a dark jacket that might have been Forest Service green once, and a brimmed hat pulled low. His hands hung at his sides. As the headlights washed over him, his face snapped into visibility for a split second. His skin looked wrong, waxen, almost rubbery. His eyes reflected the headlights too brightly, like an animal's, but flat and dull. His mouth hung slightly open, lips moving just enough to show he was saying something, but no sound reached us. His boots were visible, but somehow I could also see pale, bare toes like two different images overlapping in the same place. "Don't stop," Lila said. It was almost a growl. "Don't stop. Don't talk to him. Just go." Ben didn't slow down. As we roared past, the man's head turned to follow us, his moving lips still forming silent words. For a heartbeat, I thought I recognized the cut of his jacket, the old faded patch on the sleeve. But then the darkness swallowed him. A minute later, red and blue lights flashed ahead, strobing eerily through the trees. At mile marker 12, a white Forest Service truck blocked the road. Its emergency lights turned the trunks into a flickering blue and red tunnel. Ranger Holloway stood in front of it, arms folded. Ben braked hard, gravel spraying, and stopped a few yards from him. Holloway walked up to the driver's window and tapped. Ben rolled it down with shaking hands. "You three look like hell," Holloway said quietly. "I told you not to go past 12. Lila burst into tears. "We're sorry," she sobbed. "Please just let us out, please." "I was on my way home," Holloway said. "Thought I'd do one last pass. Saw your tracks past the gate. I knew you were stubborn, but I didn't think you were stupid." He looked past us, down the road we'd just come from, as if expecting to see someone standing there in the dark. "Did you see anyone out there?" he asked. Ben swallowed. "There was a man standing on the side of the road," he said. "Just now." He didn't talk. He just stared. "What did he look like?" Holloway asked. I described him, the coat, the hat, the eyes. Something flickered behind Holloway's eyes. Recognition? Resignation? It was gone too fast to name. He stepped aside and waved us forward. "Follow me back to the station," he said, slowly. "Don't stop for anyone." We did as we were told. Back at the ranger station, we sat on worn chairs wrapped in thin government blankets while Holloway disappeared into a back office. We didn't talk. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A radio muttered quietly from behind the front desk. After about 10 minutes, Holloway came back carrying a manila folder. He sat down across from us and laid the folder on the table between us like something heavy. "I shouldn't show you this," he said, "but I need you to understand why that road is closed, and why, if you ever come back here, you don't go past that gate again." He opened the folder and slid a sheet of paper toward me. At the bottom, in block letters, incident type, missing persons, unresolved location, FS Road 241, approx. Mile 13, date 09/02/2012. The report described 3 campers, 2 men and 1 woman, who had set up camp on an unmaintained stretch of road. They called 911 around 2 a.m. to report a man walking in circles around their tent. The dispatcher kept them on the line for 11 minutes. Then the call dropped. Search and rescue teams found a burned-out campsite 3 days later. 3 sets of footprints led away from the fire pit and vanished 100 yards into the woods. No bodies were ever recovered. Holloway slid another report over. Date 08/29/2017. Incident 911. Call from male subject stating he and 2 companions were being stalked by unknown male near unmaintained section of road past mile 12. Call dropped. Responding units arrived 42 minutes later due to road conditions. They found an abandoned campsite with a tent slashed open and a vehicle parked with the driver's door hanging open. No sign of occupants. Certain lines were highlighted in yellow. Caller describes unknown male walking perimeter in circles. Caller states subject knows our names. Caller reports subject smells of smoke. Did they find that 20 guy? Tingai, Lila asked. Holloway shook his head. No, he said, or the others. Every few years, we get a call from someone who ignores the closure signs. They always describe the same thing. A man walking around their camp, doesn't answer, stops just outside the tent. He sighed. After 2017, we stopped sending people down there at night unless we had coordinates and multiple calls. It's not safe for my rangers either. We closed the road at 12 and hoped people would take a hint. We heard a call, Ben said, on our little radio. Last night, it sounded like one of those, from 2012. He said he was by a creek past mile 13. He sounded terrified. Wouldn't surprise me, Professor Holloway said. We sometimes use old calls for training. Radio waves can bounce weird out there. You probably picked up a replay on some band you were scanning. What about the second call? I asked. Holloway frowned. What second call? Later, I said, around 2:30, we heard another one. It was me, or it sounded like me. It had our names, our truck, our exact situation. The guy said exactly what I told Ben earlier that day about not caring if the truck got stuck, just wanting to leave. Then he said the man was cutting into the tent, that he could smell smoke. Then it cut off. I swallowed. Did your dispatcher get any 911 calls from us? Anything from that road tonight? No, Holloway said. Our logs show nothing from Road 241. Your phones show no outgoing calls. We checked when you came in. He pushed his glasses up and looked me over like he was trying to decide how much to say. Are you absolutely sure you weren't half dreaming? He asked quietly. Fear does funny things. You hear things that aren't there. Fill in blanks with your own mind. I thought about the weight of the hand pushing the tent wall in, the smell of smoke filling the air, the way all three of us had been awake, watching the fabric bow inward as my own voice screamed over a channel we had no right to be hearing. I was awake, I said. We all were. Holloway watched me for a long moment, then closed the folder and tucked it under his arm. Sometimes, he said, the forest remembers things. Places hold on to, echoes, old fires, old calls, old mistakes. He looked older than he had that afternoon. You're lucky, he added. Whatever walks out there past mile 12, for whatever reason, it decided to let you go. We drove home under a pale, washed-out sky, saying very little. Back in Milwaukee that night, lying in my own bed with the door locked and city traffic murmuring outside, I replayed that call in my head over and over. My name is Alex. My friends Ben and Lila are here. There's a man walking circles around our camp. He knows our names. He smells like smoke. I told myself it had to be some bizarre coincidence. A training recording matched to our situation by chance, some prankster with a police scanner and too much time. Then I remembered that Holloway said there was no such call in the logs. About a week later, I turned the handheld radio on in my apartment, just to see if I could catch the dispatcher's voice again. The same band, any of it. All I got was static and bland weather reports. It should have comforted me. It didn't. A year later, on a hot August night when I couldn't sleep, I made the mistake of searching online for Chequamegon Mile 13 missing campers. I didn't find much. A couple of brief news mentions about people who'd gone missing in the area. Some old forum threads where hunters warned each other not to drive past the cursed gate. Then, buried in an old hunting forum from 2018, I found a comment from a deleted account. Anyone else ever get weird chatter on the radios near Road 241? I was out there last September and heard what sounded like a live 911 call from some guy named Garrett, saying a man was walking around his camp at mile marker 13. Dispatcher kept him talking. Then the line cut out. My buddy says there was a similar missing persons case out there years ago. I swear it sounded like it was happening right then. Like it was right next to us in the trees. Different name, same mile marker, same story. I closed the browser and haven't looked it up again. I haven't gone camping since. Alex says he still has that cheap little camping radio tucked away in a box in his closet. He hasn't turned it on in years. But sometimes when he wakes up around 2 a.m. and the house is too quiet, he swears he can almost hear it again in the dark. The soft hiss of static, the calm voice of a dispatcher. A man on the edge of panic, describing a tent by a creek, a closed forest road, and a mile marker that doesn't show up on any tourist map. The ranger's warning was simple. Never camp past mile marker 12. Alex and his friends disobeyed. For reasons we may never understand, they got to come back and tell us what they heard when the forest started replaying its unfinished calls for help. Others weren't so lucky. So if you ever find yourself driving down a narrow Forest Service road in the Midwest, and the mile markers tick upward, and you see an old leaning post with a faded 13 on it, and your radio starts to pick up a call from a man in a tent whose voice sounds a little too much like your own, turn around. Don't wait for him to finish the call. Don't wait until he starts describing your tent, your truck, your names. Because the next time that dispatcher answers and asks for the caller's name, the one begging her to send help might be you.